I escaped my family, but I don't know how to be a person. I don't even know how to start this. It feels unreal to say out loud, but here it goes. I think I grew up in a cult. Or something worse. From the outside, my family looked like normal, quiet people. We lived in a large house surrounded by thick woods, the kind of house that made neighbors think we were just private. But behind those doors, everything was wrong. I was homeschooled. I wasn't allowed to watch TV, read books outside my curriculum, or interact with anyone besides my parents and older brother, Caleb. My mother called outsiders contaminants. She said the world was rotting and only we were clean. When I was little, I thought this was normal. Then I turned 10, and things got worse. That's when my parents started purity nights. Once a month, they'd lock me in the basement for hours. No lights. No food. Just me and the damp smell of the earth. My father said it was to test my soul's endurance. I'd scream and cry until my throat went raw. Caleb would stand at the top of the stairs and listen. Sometimes I swear I heard him laughing. When I turned 13, my mother burned all my toys and clothes. She gave me a shapeless gray dress and said, "You're not a child anymore." I wasn't allowed to look in mirrors. I wasn't allowed to cut my hair. By 15, they made me sleep in a shed behind the house. You have to learn to survive the darkness, my father said. The shed had no insulation. Winters were brutal. I'd shiver under a thin blanket, listening to things scurrying in the corners, rats, spiders, maybe worse. Caleb would visit sometimes. I hated when he did. When I turned 18, they started talking about the binding. I didn't know what it was, but I overheard my mother telling Caleb, "She's almost ready. Soon she'll belong to you fully." That night, Caleb slipped into the shed and sat on the edge of my cot. I pretended to be asleep, but he touched my hair and whispered, "You're so lucky. You don't even know it yet." I wanted to die. I don't remember how I found the strength to run. I think some small part of me broke free the night I heard my parents talking about a final ritual. I packed a bag with stolen food and my father's old flip phone. Then I waited until 3 a.m. and sprinted into the woods barefoot. It took me 2 days to reach civilization. When I finally found a gas station, I must have looked feral. Filthy, barefoot, with tangled hair down to my hips. The clerk called the police. I told them a watered-down version of my story: strict parents, emotional abuse. I didn't dare tell them everything. They connected me with a shelter. But no one could really help. Now I'm living in a tiny apartment with a mattress on the floor and a job at a grocery store. I've cut my hair short. I bought a mirror. But I don't know how to be normal. I don't know how to make friends. When people at work invite me out, I freeze. I don't know how to hold a conversation without wondering if I'm saying something wrong. I don't know how to exist without fear. I wake up screaming some nights, convinced Caleb is standing in the corner. Last week, I got a letter with no return address. The handwriting was my mother's. It said, "You are unfinished. The binding waits. Come home." I burned it. But now every night I hear faint scratching at my door. And last night, when I checked my peephole, someone was standing there. Caleb. He smiled. And whispered, "You don't have to run anymore. It's time."
I found out why my mom adopted me, and I don't know if I can live with it. I used to think I had the best mom in the world. She raised me as a single parent, worked 2 jobs for most of my childhood, and somehow always made me feel loved. She called me her little miracle. We weren't rich, but we were happy. Birthdays were magical. She never missed a single parent-teacher meeting. She even cried when I got into college. She was my hero. But now, I can't even look at her without feeling sick. It started last year, when I needed my birth certificate for a job application. Mom got weird about it, insisting she'd take care of it and that I shouldn't worry. But I pressed. Finally, she handed me an envelope. Inside was a different name listed under mother. I wasn't hers biologically. I confronted her. Why didn't you tell me I was adopted? She froze, then sighed like she'd been carrying the weight of the world. I wanted to, but I didn't know how. That night, she told me her version of the truth. She said she found me when I was 3. My real mother was a drug addict who didn't want me. My mom claimed she couldn't stand by and let me rot in the system, so she took me in and raised me as her own. It was sweet, noble. But something didn't add up. Why was there no official adoption paperwork? No trail? I didn't mean to snoop, but after that conversation, I couldn't stop thinking about it. One afternoon when she was out, I found a locked box in her closet. It was easy to pick open. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Children. Some were smiling. Some crying. Some looked drugged. In the corner of each Polaroid was a handwritten name and number. And there were ledgers. Lists of transactions. Dates. Names of men. Amounts in the tens of thousands. At the bottom of one page was a note in my mom's handwriting. Keep Ruth in-house. She's different. No sale. I felt like throwing up. When she came home, I confronted her again. I was shaking so hard I could barely speak. What the hell were those pictures? Were you selling children? Her face went pale. She didn't deny it. She sat down, silent for a long moment, then whispered. I stopped a long time ago. I screamed at her, but she didn't flinch. I was 19 when I got into it, she said. I had nothing. A man promised me money to find children for rich clients. I thought I was saving them from poverty. I didn't know, she stopped. No. That's a lie. I knew. I just didn't care enough to stop. Not until I found you. What does that even mean? I shouted. You were different, she said softly. They wanted you, badly, but I couldn't let it happen. There was something about you. I thought if I saved you, maybe I could save myself too. She told me she burned every bridge she could, but there were still a few old friends who occasionally sent letters or emails. She'd kept a low profile to avoid them. I don't know how I've been holding it together since. I see her making breakfast and smiling like she's just a normal mom. But all I can think about are those kids. Their tiny faces. The ones who didn't get saved. I want to go to the police. I should. But part of me hesitates. Would they even believe me? The records are old. The kids are probably grown or dead. And she's still my mom. She raised me with love. She gave me everything. But then I think about the other children whose mothers didn't get a chance to stop. And last night, I found a new email on her laptop. It was from someone named Victor. The market is opening up again. You still have contacts. You can make more in 6 months than you've made in 6 years. Think about it. She hasn't replied. But she's been acting strange. Staying up late. Taking calls outside. What if she's getting pulled back in? What if I was never her redemption, just her retirement?
I grew up with 2 moms. But the truth about my family broke me. I don't even know where to start. Growing up, my family always felt strange. I had 2 moms. One of them, Auntie Sarah, was warm, funny, and took care of everything. The other, Mom, her real name is Millicent, stayed locked in her room most days. When I was little, I didn't think too hard about it. It's just how things were. Auntie Sarah cooked dinner, helped me with homework, and tucked me in. Mom barely spoke. When she did, her words came out slurred or angry. Sometimes she'd cry for hours behind her locked door. Sometimes I'd hear her smashing things in there. Once, when I was 9, I asked Sarah why Mom didn't play with me. She just said, "Your mother isn't feeling well, honey. But she loves you in her own way." I believed her. But even as a kid, I noticed the gaps. Like how none of the family photos included Mom past a certain year. Or how neighbors whispered when they saw Sarah and my dad holding hands at the market. Or how my extended family never invited us to big gatherings. Still, I didn't question it. Not until I turned 19 and found an old box in the attic. It was filled with baby clothes. 2 sets of everything. 2 cribs in the photos. 2 names written on hospital bracelets, Malik and Micah. Micah wasn't me. When I asked my dad about it, his face turned pale. He sat me down and told me everything. He married my mother, Millicent, when they were both 25. She came from a wealthy family, and their marriage was partly arranged, a merger of money and social standing. But my dad wasn't in love with her. He was already seeing Sarah on the side. When my mom found out, she tried to leave him. But because of the prenup and cultural expectations from both families, she was trapped. Divorce wasn't an option unless she forfeited all her inheritance, which her family wouldn't allow. She changed after that, Dad said quietly. She started unraveling. She'd cry for hours, forget to eat, lash out. I tried to help her, but I didn't know how. But that wasn't the whole story. There was Micah. Micah was my twin. I didn't even know I'd had a brother. He died before we turned 2. My father admitted he left us in Millicent's care one evening while he spent the night at Sarah's. My mom, already slipping into depression, was overwhelmed. She left Micah unattended in the bathtub. By the time she came back, he was gone. She wasn't the same after that, Dad said, his voice barely a whisper. She blamed herself. But, so did I. He paused. That's why I stayed. That's why we keep her here. I couldn't abandon her completely, not after what I put her through. So instead, he moved Sarah in. They raised me together like one big, messy family. That night I went to Mom's room for the first time in years. It was dark, musty, and smelled faintly of old perfume and mildew. She was sitting in the corner, rocking slowly, murmuring to herself. When she saw me, her eyes lit up, but not with recognition. "Micah," she whispered. My stomach dropped. She reached out with shaking hands. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to be enough." I didn't know what to say. I just knelt there as she sobbed, clutching my hand like a lifeline. Now I can't stop thinking about it. I grew up resenting my mom for not being there, but she wasn't even given a chance. My dad robbed her of everything, her marriage, her sanity, her children. And Sarah. I love her, but she isn't innocent either. I don't know how to face them. Part of me wants to pack up and disappear. But another part wants to stay and take care of Mom the way no one ever did. Because no matter how much I try to tell myself otherwise, I was her son too. The only one she has left.